Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Coffee with Coaches podcast. I'm your host, Kevin, and today I have with me Mic Mell. Mike is the founder of 11 Coaching, which will probably come up in conversation, but their team's incredible. He's an incredible coach. I've gotten to know him just a tiny bit via email exchange and conversation, and I don't want to give anything away, but I'm pretty stoked about this conversation we're about to have. I promise we'll keep it to the short 15 minutes or so, but I think you're going to really dig this. So, Mike, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
I'm super excited to be here with you and everyone listening. Hey, gang.
So I'm going to start this one a little bit differently than usual. And I want to throw this question out there and let you take it wherever you think is best. There's a lot of need out there in the world today. And there are a lot more people who are willing and able to articulate those needs, ask for them. What do you see in your experience as a coach, as a person, as a human, to be the greatest need for which coaches can be of service out there right now? Now, I know that's kind of a bit of a strangely phrased question, but I'm just thinking about the way that people are representing and seeking out to have their needs met. What do you see as the most pressing one, or maybe the loudest one right now?
So I believe that the most pressing need in the coaching world is coaches who are completely focused on the results their clients want. So when you go to a coach, obviously the coach has to have a method, but if you're living inside of someone else's conceptual framework, you're wearing someone else's pants.
Ooh, yeah.
So it's really, there are many coaches out there that are very like, we're going to go through the process and, we'll do call number 7 when call number 7 comes up. But really like the kind of performance coaching that, focuses on every person's specific need, those bespoke custom agreements, right? I think that's the biggest need.
I like that term, bespoke. It obviously gets used in a lot of different places, but that's very appropriate. Like I'm in my head, I'm imagining I only ever had this done once, worn a tailored suit. It's just one time in my life. I'm not, usually it's just like lazy button downs for me, but just something about having something tailored for you. There's nothing quite like it. And I think you're right. I think you're very spot on, because a lot of coaches they'll be basically like you're saying, they're bringing their own pants to the conversation. They're putting their clothes on you a lot of times. Sometimes I don't want to speak for all coaches, but that word bespoke, I feel like, is so important, because the individual needs are very individual and very unique, and everyone's at a particular stage in their journey, at a particular point in their process, and have particular needs that are ready to be met now, and needs that maybe will need to be met in the future, but they're just not there yet. And just coming in with a blanket approach, I feel like ignores a lot of what people need. I think you're spot on with that.
Well, there still needs to be a coaching framework, right? Like a coach from somewhere. For me, what it is, and I admit this is a little bit incendiary, right? But I think there's a big difference between coaching people and offering people a set of intellectual property. And this for me has always been the challenge, right? Because I'm the founder of 11. We have like 24 coaches on staff. Everybody coaches a little bit differently. So we've managed to find a group of people that are all coaching in the same method, but all play their instrument differently, And the dilemma becomes everyone uses language in a slightly different way. So you can present ideas to people and have them learn. Like, I can teach people how I think about things and the words that I use, but it has to fit for them. I mean, just the English language has more than 500,000 words in it, and we haven't even gotten into the rest of them yet. So, how do you have people take the ideas and concepts and put them in their own words, right? So like many years ago, I worked in an international business coaching company, was their director of training and development. And we offered people a calendar system. And so what it was no matter what you did when you came to work with us, we trained you in our calendar system. And almost every single one of my clients in that 2.5 years stopped using that calendar system when they left, because someone else's pants. And it really is like, when you ask what that need is, it's people need stuff put to them in their terms, and that's a lot more challenging than just offering people an idea.
Yeah, there's an art to that kind of translation, and I like the use of I like thinking about language as a framework for understanding this, because I'm just thinking about with like just within the English language, not only are there over 500,000 words, but there's also so many different dialects within that language that indicate maybe where you grew up or where you spend a lot of time, words that might have different meanings culturally or locally than they do elsewhere. There's all these, and everyone is essentially their own country, their own dialect within this language. And doing the hard, well, I don't want to call it hard work because it isn't necessarily hard, but doing the challenging work, maybe that's a better word, of helping someone translate your words into their language, the way that they speak, so that, they don't just adopt your methodology and the moment they're out of sight, just drop it, because they never really found out how to understand it and express it in their own words, in their own dialect. I really think it's powerful.
Do you know the difference between intellectual and applied knowledge?
Tell me.
Can I give you an example? Think of a bad habit that you have. Don't tell me what it is. Just tell me when it's in your head.
Bad habit that I have. Okay, got it.
Yeah, that took like no time at all, right?
No time at all.
That's how you know you're self-aware. So, you have this habit, you do it, some of the things that trigger it, something about where it came from, right? That's all intellectual knowledge. Notice that none of that's making any difference because you still do it.
Mm-hmm. My behavior hasn't changed.
Transferring knowledge to people is useful because we all have to learn stuff. I mean, we do have to, you can't be a lifelong learner if you're not always learning. And I think people know a lot more than they do. So, more than anything, and I know this is almost all coaches, so I'm about to say like almost all coaches really are in the game to have people unlock what's already within them. I don't think that's special about anyone I know, right? Really bring out the best in people. And the way we play it at 11 is like, well, whatever the clients do, that's what they came to break through. So like, you ever met someone that was like difficult or argumentative?
Yes, I've met those people and been that person.
So like in the world of coaching, if someone comes to the call and they're being argumentative, it's not because they want to argue. Who would pay money for that? Yeah. It's because they're committed to something, And so look, it's really easy to draw boundaries of, I'm only going to do business like this. I'm only going to do business like that. These are my rules. It's easy to, when anyone is in a position of authority, to create a game where you control the rules. Mm-hmm. I am a big believer that in the world of coaching, it's about giving people the freedom to be. Most people who love their coaches, one of the things they love about their coaches is that they feel free to be however they are and however they're not with that person. Certainly, I failed with some of my clients because I failed to communicate that.
No, I really do. I really love this. And also, I just want to take a second and thank you for approaching the conversation like this. Because this excites me and scares me a little bit, just really, really pushing our thoughts out there and trying to getting at the heart of what makes a relationship with a coach powerful, what makes coaching so useful and needful right now. So I felt compelled to thank you in the middle of the conversation.
One of my favorite quotes is that you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. Now, they say that's an Einstein quote, but according to the quotable Einstein, he never said it. So I said it, right? It's a Mic Mell quote. Can't solve a problem with the same thinking that created it. It's my second most famous quote. My most famous quote is good artists borrow and great artists steal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's mine too. The thing of it is, people go to coaches because they've hit the limits of their thinking, right? Mm-hmm. But given that we all see the world differently, and given that there's always more than one way to the top of the mountain, I don't know that I know what's best for people. I actually don't think I know what's best for anyone. I mean, I don't even think I know what's best for me all the time.
Yeah. And I might know for like 5 minutes, and then 5 days later, that knowledge will be different.
Yeah, but that, like, the thing is, real thinking is difficult, you know, like, you know, we all have autopilot. You know, you drive somewhere and you don't pay any attention to that taco stand, and then one day you see it and you know it's been there the whole time and you just didn't see it. So like, think about how much a life is just moving by us because we're on autopilot. You call up your parent or your sibling, and then you have that same dumb conversation with them over and over and over again, you know?
Going through the motions.
And it really takes something for all of us to step outside of whatever is the familiar, or the status quo, or the automatic, or whatever you want to call it, right? Because again, I don't really care what people call it. I just care that people have access to it. I come from music, right? And so in music, it's like it is a feeling. And so the point is, the journey of coaching, I don't know that really it's about the best way to do things. I think that's intellectual knowledge, right?
Yeah.
It's that question of, if you really give up your truths about how the world is and how you are and how others are, then anything could happen. You know, every quarter I create my life. So, you know, we do the same work our clients do. And a couple of years ago, I remember one quarter when I created my exploration for that 90-day span was, other people are having relationships that are completely different than mine, and I could have those. So I think for all of us, there's like a way life is for each of us, right? But then everyone else is having these completely different lives. So we could have access to that outside of our own thinking.
I have so many different places my brain is going right now. There's a couple. I won't even touch the musical aspect of it, because that's a rich vein of gold right there to help understand human thinking and human experience. There's something, obviously, well, not obviously, one of the things that many people have taken up in the last couple of years, and I certainly have, is I've started walking more. I've always been a walker. I've always loved walking around where I live. And I'm not just talking about hikes. I'm talking about just wandering around neighborhoods, you know, coming to a city for the first time and just walking around downtown. I love walking. And so I've taken up walking in an even more committed way in the last couple of years. And one thing that I love noticing is what happens to my awareness when I walk on the same road, but on a different side of the street. Or instead of going down the road, instead of going south, I take a different loop and I come back up and I go north. And just moving a different direction, or even on a different side of the street, I notice different things. I feel differently. My awareness is tripped up by different stuff. I'll notice, you know, a cat I eventually discover is always in this one yard, but never noticed the cat before. Maybe there was a tree in the way on the other side of the street, or maybe I wasn't paying attention in the right way. Just something as simple as walking down the exact same street I've walked down hundreds of times on the other side or in a different direction. And I see more. I feel differently.
Do that.
What's that?
How do you remember to walk down the street differently? How do you remember not to do what you always do?
I have people who remind me.
So reminders.
People who remind me, and then it's part of it's a
calendar. Could be a Post-it note. It could be you have some external reminder that's not in your head that says to you, "Hey, you should do X," or remind you about X. And it's always what you created, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, and it becomes a habit. It becomes a habit that counteracts a sort of habitual behavior. It's a habit for me to say, you know, let me take a different route today, or let me try a different direction, because I've been coached and practiced and worked with and held accountable to do that in my life in so many ways over years, that it's one of those things that has its own momentum. The kind of questioning and reimagining of your own life has momentum to it in a way that's I'm continually finding powerful and amazing.
Then it becomes the new habit. And then when it becomes the new habit, it becomes the new automatic. And then it's just more of it. You know, the brain is a prediction machine. The truth is, I don't want to have to relearn how to drive or use email or cook or any of that stuff, or brush my teeth, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, the brain would prefer to predict everything, because then it doesn't have to work as hard.
Yep.
but like, stepping outside of whatever is automatic for any of us is like, it is an endless effort, because if you say what you always say or do what you always do, then you're on automatic. And if someone says, oh, I already do that, then what they're saying is that's already their automatic. See, people get so caught up in these automatics are good and these are bad that it no longer becomes about what's automatic. It becomes about what's good or bad, or what I like or dislike, or all that stuff, which has nothing to do with what works and what doesn't, right?
Yep.
Regardless of my opinion of something, if it's repeated and habitual, then it's repeated and habitual, separate and distinct from my emotional experience of it. So I think it's really cool that you're designing a world for yourself that actually reminds you of things like, do not mindlessly walk down the street, enjoy it, because look, ain't nobody getting out of this world alive,
Damn right. Keeps coming back to that, doesn't it? It's like, we're not getting out alive, so we might as well have the best time we can while we're here.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of where else I want to take this conversation. We're already like 20 minutes, and I know you have a hard out here, and not too terribly long from now.
Oh, I got.
And I want to. What's that?
I have more time. I'm having some fun now.
Yeah, me too.
Got me woken up.
I know like I perused your LinkedIn profile briefly and noticed that you mentioned having music in your life. And you mentioned how much that has, or you mentioned how that informs your thinking about coaching and just about life in general. Talk more about that. I wish I had a better, more specific question. Then talk about that.
I got you. Thank you for asking. So, I spell my name MIC, like a microphone. My personal website is micmell.com, micmell.com. There's my plug.
Nice.
And I have been a musician for most of my life. I play keys and bass professionally, a variety of styles of music. And, no two people play music the same way. Like, it's just how it is. And so that's what really got me connected to people. Don't really talk the same way, and coaching all happens in conversation. It's all a dialogue. It's all in language. It's all sound and words and synesthesia. And I think there's an art to everything in life. There's an art to making a sandwich. There's an art to being a parent. There's an art to waiting in line, and so, art powered the Enlightenment. Right? There was the Renaissance, and then there was the Enlightenment. So whatever it is about human civilization over the last 500 years that has value for people, all springs forth from art. And so I have a commitment that people really get to experience the artfulness of their own life. That's why I like to use words like design and create and play, because most of us are not dealing with actually matters of life and death, or we're recording this. There's actually a land war in Europe happening right now, which is an unusual thing. That's a completely different kind of conversation than the one you and I are having right now. That's got nothing to do with refrigeration and, mail order clothing, which is some of the first stuff that goes in war, right? But we do have an opportunity here and now to, participate in this grand society of the world. And it's on each of us to find ways to remind ourselves of that, because I forget that it's all art all the time until I have conversations like this. And that's, I'm lucky enough that I get to have coaching calls, or I get to come be on a show like this. And then that for me is my reminders. But everybody needs them.
Yeah, same for me. It's so, there are all these invitations in the day-to-day life to just kind of settle into the groove of the mundane. just to kind of like just drop onto the rails and just let the day do its thing, carry you forward. You're in the details, you're checking stuff off the list, you're, answering emails, you're yada, 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 yada. And just that reminder, that trip, is like, wait, like you say, it's all art. It's all art. It's all art. Think about it.
It could be. Like, I don't know that here's the thing. When I mopped my floors yesterday, I don't know that I related to it as art. I related to it as I'm mopping the floor.
Sure.
Right. And because I didn't have a reminder, something to tap me on the shoulder, people talk a lot about mindfulness and being present. So the thing of it is, you're present when you're present and you're not when you're not. And we don't know we're not present until that moment when we check back in. So like, you drive somewhere and you don't pay attention, and then you put the car in park and there's this moment where you snap back, right? That's the moment you know. And so this whole conversation I'm having with you, hopefully with y'all listening, is the critical nature of having something outside of yourself to tap you on the shoulder, to remind you of who you are and what matters to you in your own words, because that's the only thing that really makes the difference in the end. Otherwise, you're just caught in whatever your automatic is. And by you, I mean me, right? Like, oh my God, this conversation could turn into me saying what I always say so fast.
Yeah. It'd be so easy. It'd be so easy it's so easy to fall into those grooves. And I gotta say, okay. The word that just came to mind to use to describe this conversation is that I'm so jazzed by it. That was not an intentional pun. I promise. It's just the first word that came to my mind, because it's improvisational, it's extemporaneous. We're harmonizing, we're vibing, we're picking up what the other person's putting down, maybe taking it somewhere a little bit different, maybe going along on the same path. And so it's the word popped into my head, and I immediately got embarrassed by the pun, but I'm digging it. I'm sticking with it. I'm jazzed by this conversation. I hope everybody else is too, because this is great.
So going back to the original thing you asked, right, to bring it back to the beginning here at the end. One of the most important things I think a coach can provide for people is to breathe life into them, because life is hard. Okay. You don't nobody's getting out of this alive, and we're hungry and we're cold, and you pay the bills and the bills are due. And then you're rich and you have rich people problems, and you're poor and you have poor people problems, and the dentist is unpleasant for everyone. And, you like, life is just hard. And I think anything difficult will grind you down at some point. And so I consider it, like, even though it's hokey, I consider it a sacred responsibility to breathe life into people, because that's really what it is. My clients come to me and, like, it's time to go out there and achieve. And by achieve, I mean live their lives, be a fully engaged father, or finish their book, and like literally like dude is finishing his book this week, or whatever it is. And that inspiration, that excitement to be alive, like, it's just so important, And I think all coaches, and this I really do believe, no matter how bad a coach is, I think pretty much all coaches have that commitment to breathe life into people and inspire them. That's not a matter of skill. How that expresses itself, your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
I would say all coaches have that commitment to breathe life into people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that's been, I feel so blessed in these conversations I've been able to have with coaches. Just finding out each individual person's unique approach, their personal story about how it manifests and how they approach their coaching relationships. But without fail, every single coach I talk to in any way, whether it's on a podcast or like a LinkedIn message or an email or whatever, it's immediately apparent that there's that one thing that they all have in common, is they want to breathe life. They want to take something about what they found about life to be beautiful, magical, important, lovely, joyful, and find a way to share that and help other people to find it for themselves. And it's rare when you have such unanimity, a unanimous consent. Just a complete 100% across the board unification of intention And again, your
And if
mileage may
you get
vary
it,
and how that
it's
manifests.
totally fleeting. It's just a moment. That's the
Yeah.
thing. We're all moving through time. It appears to generally be moving in the same direction for all of us, right?
As far as I can
And
tell.
so like everything comes in and out. And that, you know, back to that art thing, like there is like life is moving in a direction. And what a glorious opportunity it is for all of us, for you listening to this, for you, Kevin, for me. Like, here is something super cheesy. We'll leave it on this super cheesy note, okay?
I love it.
And I like it because it is mathematically sound. Okay. Do you know how mathematically improbable it is that there's life on Earth?
I think it's a high number, but I don't know. It's probably high. Actually, I don't know.
I mean, there's 9 planets in the solar system and only one of them has life that we know of. So like already, like we're on our way to, and a lot of the exoplanets being found aren't within some whatever. So like most planets appear to not have life.
Yeah.
So relatively unlikely. Now,
mathematically speaking.
how unlikely is it that on this one planet where life is unlikely, that you, listening to me right now, that you exist? And how unlikely is it that you exist and all of the people around you exist and that you're all crossing paths at the perfect time? Because if you talk about harmony or serendipity or the cosmic certitude of however you live your life, then like there is a mathematical improbability that all things should line up the way they're lining up. And yet here we are, completely improbable to be here, that I can communicate to you and you may not even know what I look like, and I may never meet you and you may never meet me, and yet here we are. And it's just so bizarrely unlikely that such a thing should occur. And so thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for this absurdly improbable moment, which also may have been mathematically certain, 100% certain, but maybe not. Maybe it's just random and the dice came up, and either way, it's so specific. It's such a this is such a specific moment in time that I am talking and you are listening. And what a joy it is for us to share these specific moments together, even the crappy ones.
Listeners can't see my face right now. I am grinning like an idiot, and my cheeks are getting sore from smiling so much. This has been one of my favorite conversations I have ever had on a podcast. Thank you so much, Mike, for sharing yourself. Like, we didn't just talk, you really shared yourself, and I appreciate it. I love it. I'm grateful for it. I'm glad I got to be here, and I'm glad I get to wear the smile for at least the rest of the day, because I'm gonna.
Great. And y'all send this man fan mail and tell him what you want him to talk about, and he will totally do that.
I'm adaptable, I'm flexible, and I am, above all, joyful. At least I try to be.
There are lots of O's. I like all of you.
Lots of O's. Mike, thank you. Audience, thank you. Find Mike, find him, talk to him, get a little piece of this for yourself. Listen to this podcast. He's fantastic. And
coaching.com.
There it is.
Everybody gets a free consultation call, so you can always just book a free call with us, and we'll talk about what you like and what matters to you, and also we will tell you what we do.
Perfect. All it's going to cost you is your time, and you will not be sad you spent it with Mike. Thank you all. We'll talk to you again soon.